So welcome to VLSI technology lecture. In the last lecture, we have already discussed about the diffusion process. We have seen the Fick's law of diffusion, and we have derived the certain doping profiles in two different conditions, which we have discussed as pre-deposition and driving steps. Now today we have to discuss a very important topic, which is related to our diffusion systems. So what kind of diffusion systems that we have, and how these systems can be used for diffusion of different type of impurities. Okay, like when we go for the doping process, we know that we are having N type and P type dopates. So we have to look at what kind of sources we have to use, what kind of diffusion system we have to use. So as we can see here, okay, we are having basically four type of diffusion system. uh, Basically it is of generally five type. Okay, so mostly we are using these four, but we are having total five type of diffusion systems. So like first one is our solid source diffusion system. Then it is liquid source diffusion system, gaseous source diffusion system, and a spin-on source. And there is one more source which is known as the planar source of diffusion. Okay, so just try to begin this one. So first of all, we have the solid source diffusion system. So generally, whenever we are going for the diffusion process, then we have to take the our dopant material in a certain state. Okay, so whenever the dopant we have taken in the form of solid, okay, it must be in the form of a certain compound. Okay, and that compound will be available in the form of solid, then this type of system will be used. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to take the solid source of the dopant material, okay, within a particular diffusion system. So you try to remember that, recall the oxidation system that I have discussed. The system is something or somewhat more or less it is same. Okay, it is not very different, it is same type of system we are using. Okay, it will be the same system, right, whatever we have for the oxidation. So basically we are having a quartz diffusion tube, and within that we have to have the our silicon wafers. Okay, so silicon wafers will be loaded onto a particular boat, and that boat will be slide into the our quartz diffusion tube. Okay, by using a particular carrier. Okay, now whatever the source that we want to take, if it is in the form of solid, then that particular dopant material will be kept in a boat which is made up of platinum. Okay, so that is our source boat. Okay, so within the source boat, which is made up of platinum, we have to place our solid dopant material. Okay, so after placing it, it should be placed nearby our slices of our silicon wafers. Okay, so silicon wafers, wherever it is kept, so just near to that, it should be placed our solid source. Okay, and now as we know, to go for the diffusion, we have to vaporize this particular solid source. Okay, we have to vaporize it. So we have to heat this particular solid source, okay, using a heating mechanism. And not only the solid sources need to be heated, but we have to also heat our uh, wafers, okay, silicon wafers, in which we want to perform the diffusion process. So these two things has to be heated. Okay, that will be heated. Then after heating, this particular solid source will be vaporized, and these vapors will be transported to this particular wafers. Okay, towards this particular wafers by using a particular carrier gases. Okay, we have to take a certain carrier gases. Okay, so these carrier gases will be depending on what kind of dopant we want to use, and it could be like oxygen, or it could be like certain inert gases like argon, or some other nitrogen gases, okay, nitrogen or argon we can use. So that type of carrier gases can be used. In most of the cases, you will find that we will be using oxygen as a carrier. Okay, so there will be a certain oxidation that is going to take place, and then this vapor is going to make a reaction. And after making a reaction, a certain product will be formed and it will be deposited over the wafers. And later on, at the diffusion temperature, it will start diffusing through the material. So that way, this system works. Okay, that the system works. So now, after having the solid source diffusion system, we can, as we see that our dopant should be in the form of solid. Okay, it should be in the form of solid. Now we can have the liquid source of diffusion. Okay, so liquid source diffusion system, in this again, we have to have our wafers, okay, which will be available in the our diffusion furnace. Okay, this is our diffusion furnace. So within this diffusion furnace, we have to place our slices, okay, our wafer slices, okay, our means silicon wafers, okay, that has to be placed within this diffusion system. And then we have to use a particular liquid source of our dopant material. Okay, whatever impurity we want to diffuse or we want to dope, okay, that should be available in the form of liquid at a particular temperature. So what we have to do is we have to send the carrier gases, and this liquid will be bubbled through this carrier gas. Okay, and then a vapor of this particular liquid will be formed, and this vapor will be transported to this particular system. Okay, so it will be transported, and then this going to make a certain reaction again onto the surface, and then it will be get start diffusing. Okay, so in this cases again, the concentration of surface concentration of the dopant material which is going to deposit over the surface will depend on the concentration of the vapors. Okay, so generally it is highly saturated vapors will be formed, and that concentration will depend on the bubbler's temperature. Okay, what is the temperature of the bubbler? Okay, so that temperature will control what will be the surface concentration of the dopant material which is going to be diffused. So this way we can control the entire system, and basically in the most of the cases you will find that the diffusion is generally performed by having the liquid source diffusion system. Okay, this source is most popular. There are certain exemptions that I will tell you. In certain cases we use some other system also. So this is one of the system in which we have to take the carrier gas, and then we have to bubble this particular liquid which is kept in a particular container, okay, at a particular temperature. And based on the temperature, this carrier concentration or the surface concentration of the dopant will be decided. Now, after having this liquid source diffusion system, we have another source, okay, another diffusion system, which is our gaseous source diffusion system. Okay. So as we can see, it is the most convenient or most, you can say a very easy system, okay, very most convenient system, okay, if you see its arrangement, okay. So what we have to do is we have to take the certain dopant gases, okay, the gases will be kept in a certain container or a cylinder, and then a control amount of gas will be allowed to pass through this particular diffusion system, okay, along with a certain carrier gases. Again, the carrier gases can be oxygen, can be nitrogen, or depending on what kind of dopant material we want to do. Okay, so there will be a certain reaction is going to take place, and then that reaction will be forming a certain product. That product will be sent to your this silicon wafers, and after that it will start diffusing at the diffusion temperature. Okay, so this is most sophisticated, very simple system, okay, as far as the configuration of the system is concerned. Okay, here we can see we are having one chemical trap. Okay, so basically what happens when we pass the dopant gas, okay, along with the carrier gases, there may be a chances that there may be some unreacted dopant gas may be left over. Okay, so that is actually highly dangerous gases, and that we want to trap it in this particular chemical trap. So this is what is the function of the chemical trap. So it really actually it is acting as a uh, acting as a, or to actually it is used for disposing the unreacted dopant gases. So this is what the use of this chemical trap. So these are the general systems that we can see in the solid case, the liquid case, and the gaseous source. Okay, there is one more system which is called as the spin-on source diffusion system. Okay, this is again one of the system which is very much popular in the case of arsenic doping. Okay, remember that for the arsenic doping, we use this particular system. But one more thing is that any of the dopant can be diffused by having this spin-on source diffusion system. Okay, there are certain chemicals that can be used. Okay, by using this spin-on source diffusion system. So basically, what we do is we have to take a dilute mixture of a dopant compound. Okay, we have to take a dilute mixture of a dopant compound in an organosilane. Okay, so this is the basic material. We have to take the mixture of this two. Okay, organosilane and dopant compound. Okay, we have to take the mixture of this two, and then this mixture will be forming a particular chemical, and that chemical drop should be applied to a wafer. Okay, so we have to apply this drop to this particular wafer, and after that what we have to perform is we have to rotate the wafer. Okay, it is much similar to your spin coating. Okay, uh, as we have already seen how we coat the photoresist material. Okay, so generally what we do in the case of photoresist, we have to apply a drop and then we have to spin the wafer, and that way the photoresist will spread over the entire surface. A similar process we can assume, like we have to take a certain mixture. Okay, a certain chemical mixture of a certain chemicals. Okay, and that drop should be there onto the, we have to put onto the wafer, and then we have to rotate it with a certain rpm. Okay, that 2500 to 5000 rpm is enough. Okay, so then after rotating, when it is spread over the entire region, it will be forming a very thin layer of source material. Okay, it will be forming a very thin layer. So normally it is of 5000 angstrom. Okay, so what we do is after spreading this particular chemical, okay, we have to heat the system. Okay, we have to heat the system more than 250 degrees centigrade or 200 degrees centigrade. And after heating, generally this organosilans decomposes into dopant oxide. We remember that it will be decomposing into this two form. One is dopant oxide and another one is SiO2. Okay, and then this dopant oxide will be generally providing you the dopant material. Okay, and then it will be start diffusing into your wafer. So this way, this spin-on source diffusion system works. Similarly, we have another source, which is our planar dopant source diffusion system. Okay, so generally what we do is in the planar dopant source diffusion system, you can look at the arrangement of the system. Generally what we have is we are taking the like disc shape impurity materials. Okay, so like in this case we are taking a particular impurity, okay, source, particular impurity source in a disc form. Okay, in a disc form, and it will be arranged in this fashion, and nearby we will find a certain silicon slices which are available. So when we heat it, a particular vapor pressure will be formed. Okay, and then this vapor pressure will be transported to towards this silicon slices. Generally, the gap between these two, dopant slices, you can say dopant slices, and your silicon slices is made like 2 to 3 mm. Okay, so very small gap in between is maintained, and then this will be heated up to a certain diffusion temperature. Once this vapor pressure is formed, this vapor will be coming out of this dopant material, and then it will be deposited to your silicon wafer uniformly. Okay, this is one of the important things. So it is much similar like your chemical vapor deposition technique. Okay, chemical vapor deposition technique. So these are the different ways how we can go for the doping process by using the diffusion technique. We are having a different type of systems. Okay, As we see, it is solid source diffusion system, liquid source diffusion system, gaseous source, spin-on source, and planar dopant source diffusion system. Now we have to look at one by one. So if we go for the diffusion, okay, I'll be discussing about the diffusion in the silicon. Okay, basically we are studying about the silicon. We are not studying about the gallium arsenide, but we can go for the discussion of gallium arsenide also. But in this particular lecture, we are restricted ourselves in studying about the diffusion in the silicon wafers. So as we know that in the silicon wafers, we are having different type of dopants, but basically like we are having p-type dopant, we are having the n-type dopants, okay, but mostly that the most popular dopants, if you see in the p-type dopant, we are using the boron. Okay, boron is a fast diffuser because of its diffusivity. Okay, its diffusion constant is high. Okay, so this boron is universally used in each and every cases. You will find that we are using the boron type, okay, for p-type dopant. Okay, we are having some other dopant also, but mostly we are using the boron. Okay, similarly we are having the n-type dopant, in which we are the most popular one is the phosphorus. Okay, we are having the phosphorus and we are having the arsenic. We can see the arsenic is having its diffusivity which is less than the phosphorus or boron. Okay, it will be less than that. Okay, it's 1/10 of that exactly. Okay, so it is a slow diffuser. So generally when we want to form a very shallow junctions or shallow regions, shallow doped regions, okay, where we don't want junction depth to be very high, then generally we are going for the arsenic. Okay, generally we are going for the arsenic because it is diffusing very slowly as compared to the phosphorus and boron. So in case of the phosphorus, it is very difficult to form a shallow junctions because its diffusivity is very high. Generally, it will go deep inside the material, and therefore shallow junction formation is not possible generally due to the faster diffusivity of your phosphorus. So wherever we want to form a shallow junction, we have to go for the arsenic. So we will be discussing about these three impurities, which are more important, okay, more popular dopants in our silicon. So here you can see the different sources of our impurities. Okay, as we said, we want to discuss about the boron, arsenic, and phosphorus. Okay, then we have to look at what are the different sources. If we go for the different type of diffusion system, then which type of source material we have to choose. Obviously we are not going to directly use the boron, we are not directly going to use the arsenic or phosphorus. Okay, we have to have a certain compound material. Okay, and that compound material will be used as a source. Okay, and later on a certain chemical reaction is going to take place, and after the chemical reaction this dopant material will be supplied. Okay, supplied to the uh, onto the surface of your wafer, and later on it will start diffusing at the diffusion temperature. So here we can see that for the boron, in the table you can see we are I have already tabulated so many things. Okay, so I have written about the solid sources, liquid sources, gaseous sources, and the spin-on sources. Okay, so here you can see we are using the boron nitride. Here we are using the TMB BBr3. It is boron tribromide. Okay, B2S6, BCl3, carborane, and alkyl siloxane. Okay, similarly we are having different sources for your arsenic. We are having a different sources for your phosphorus. One thing that I would like to emphasize here is that whatever be the chemical, whatever be the impurity that we want to diffuse, okay, the essential chemical equation, okay, when you see, you will find that it will be having this type, okay, the essential chemical equation. So basically, we have to take a certain oxide of the dopant, okay. You have to take a certain oxide, it will be reacting with the silicon, okay, and then what happens is it will be making a certain product, and that product will be your SiO2 and plus your dopant material. Okay, and this dopant material is going to diffuse through the SiO2 layer. Okay, so this is the basic chemical equation you will find everywhere, where this D is denotes you the dopant material. Okay, like in the case of boron, then it should be boron. If it is phosphorus, then it should be a phosphorus. Okay, obviously. So this particular essential equation has to be followed everywhere. Okay, everywhere, no matters which particular impurity we want to diffuse, the ultimate equation will be this. Okay, ultimate equation will be this. Okay, and then the diffusion will take place. Now, so first of all, we can begin the discussion with the boron. So first of all, you just let's see certain properties of the boron. You can see we are having its intrinsic diffusivity is the order of 10 to the power minus 12 centimeter square per second at 1200 degrees centigrade. Okay, so this is the intrinsic diffusivity of our, or you can say it is diffusion constant of the boron in silicon. Okay, at 1200 degrees centigrade. Similarly, if you see the surface concentration, okay, as I said that uh, surface concentration will be completely decided by the solid solubility. Okay, so solid solubility of your boron in silicon. Okay, so this is equals to 4 into 10 to the power 28 atoms per centimeter cube. Similarly, the tetrahedral radius is 0.88 angstrom. And there is one very important parameter which is called as the misfit factor. Okay, so this misfit factor for your boron in silicon is 0.254. So basically the tetrahedral radius of the boron doesn't matches with the silicon. And because there is a mismatch between the tetrahedral radiuses, there is a strain induced effects. Okay, there will be certain strain which is going to be developed within the crystal, and that strain is having a certain effect onto the what will be the total number of active impurity concentration which may be available. Okay, it is also causes a lots of damage. Okay, because of the strain that will develop due to the mismatch in the tetrahedral radius as compared to your silicon. Okay, so because of this mismatch, because of this misfit factor, what we can say is the surface concentration that can have is 4 into 10 to the power 28 tons per centimeter cube. But not all these impurities are active. Okay, all is not going to give you a certain number of uh, like uh, uh, carrier concentration. Okay, so it will be a certain number of carrier concentration which will be available, which will be your inactive carrier concentrations. Okay, so basically due to this misfit factor, you will find that the active impurity concentration that may participate in enhancing the conductivity of our semiconductor is 5 into 10 to the power 19 atoms per centimeter. Though we are having the surface concentration which is limited by the surface solubility, solid solubility of the boron in the silicon is 10 to the power 20, but still we cannot have the active impurity concentration more than 5 into 10 to the power 19 atoms per centimeter. So now here we can look at the different equations. Okay, different equations. So the basic equation, as I said, the basic equation again we have to take the a certain oxide of the boron. Okay, so you can see that a surface reaction between the boron trioxide with silicon slice. Okay, so we have to take the boron trioxide with the silicon, and then this reaction will take place, and then this product will be formed. Here we can see there will be a formation of the SiO2, plus we are getting the boron, which is our desired dopant. Okay, now this boron is going to be diffused at the diffusion temperature. Okay, so it is going to be diffused. One thing that we have to remember is when we talk about the boron trioxide, okay, we cannot directly use the boron trioxide, because there is a problem with the boron trioxide is whenever we have a very high concentration of the boron or the excess concentration of the boron trioxide, it is going to form a certain silicides and certain like boron compounds. Okay, so that boron compounds are actually forming a dark brown surface onto the silicon. Okay, it is forming a dark brown surface onto the silicon, and that is known as the boron skin. Okay, and that surface is known as the boron skin. So generally this boron skin is acting as an insulator. Okay, it is acting like an insulator, and it is very difficult to remove because it is not dissolvable into any solid, any particular chemical or acids. Okay, so that removing of the boron skin is very difficult. So that's why we cannot directly use the boron trioxide. Okay, we cannot use the boron trioxide directly. Okay, because of the boron skin. Okay, so generally what we do when we doing this particular chemical reaction, okay, with the boron trioxide, generally what we do is we have to go for the wet oxidation of the silicon. Okay, once we go for the wet oxidation of the silicon, if once the boron skin is formed, to remove that boron skin, we have to go for the wet oxidation of the silicon that converts this layer into borosilicate glass. Okay, and this borosilicate glass is actually dissolvable into hydrofluoric acid. In that way, we can remove. So that actually adds a certain steps and certain like chemical reactions that has to be done if we go for this particular boron trioxide to go for the diffusion. So generally this is not used. Okay, this B2O3 is directly not used, but this is the essential equation that has to be followed everywhere. You remember that excess concentration leads to formation of the boron skin. Okay, so we have to control the generation of the B2O3. So what we do is we are generally going for some other sources. So as I said, we can go for the planar solid source. Okay, so generally what we do is we are taking the boron nitride. Okay, we are taking a boron nitride, a thin disc or wafer of the boron nitride is available in the market. So that type of disc has to be taken, and then a particular furnace will be taken, which is our planar solid source furnace, planar solid diffusion system. Okay, in that system, the way I have shown you, we have to place our boron nitride discs, and then we have to pre-oxidize this particular disc up to a temperature of 750 degrees centigrade to 1100 degrees centigrade for 30 minutes. So after doing this pre-oxidation, a thin layer of B2O3 onto this disc will be formed. Okay, onto this disc will be the very thin layer of B2O3 will be formed, and that layer can be transported to your silicon to make this particular reaction. Okay, so essentially what we do is we have to have this particular chemical equation for the diffusion of the boron, but the one thing that we have to make sure that the concentration of the B2O3 should be very small, okay, so that the boron skin effect can be eliminated. So this way we can perform this particular diffusion process. One more very popular source that we are using nowadays is liquid source, which is made up of trimethyl borate, okay, TMB. So this trimethyl borate we have to use, and generally trimethyl borate is very highly volatile material. So generally we are keeping it at 0 degree centigrade. Okay, uh, so that it should be available. Okay, because it's vapor pressure, we have to send it and we have to make this reaction. Okay, at 900 degrees centigrade. But generally we have to keep this trimethyl borate in the liquid form at 0 degree centigrade. Okay, so after having this reaction, okay, after having this reaction, again we have to form the B2O3. Okay, this reaction is going to uh, form this B2O3, and then this B2O3 will be sent to your diffusion chamber. Okay, and then again this the same reaction will take place and the diffusion will start happening. So this way we can have our diffusion of boron. We have another liquid source, which is our boron tribromide. You can see here. So generally this boron tribromide is again, it is a liquid source, but remember that because of the presence of the bromine, it is a halogenic source. So it is a halogen, so it is a halogenic source. So again, we have to take this, and then again, we have to take the oxidizing ambient, and then this reaction has to take place. Okay. So after having this reaction, we can again form the B2O3, and then this B2O3 will make a reaction with the silicon, and again it will be gets diffused. So as we can see that in this case, the halogen bromine is going to be released. Okay. So we have to have a very adequate venting. Okay, venting system is must to uh, so that it should be removed from that reaction chamber. Okay. So one more thing that we can remember is whenever this concentration is very high, okay, if bromine concentration is very high, there may be a halogen pitting effect may occur. Okay. So generally, having this bromine, sometimes bromine, or even if it is a chlorine, okay, generally we can use the BCl3, okay. So BCl3 like boron trichloride, this will be available in the form of gases, okay, at room temperature. So even if we have the chlorine, in that cases, adequate venting will be required, okay. And generally this chlorine or bromine, when it will be captured by your silicon, okay, due to its high concentration, it have the advantages of having a gettering effect, okay. So it will be helping in the gettering, okay. So that's why sometimes chlorine and bromine also useful or advantageous when we use this type of liquid sources. The other source that we can use is our gaseous source. Okay, the gaseous source is our diborane, which is our B2H6. Okay, so generally diborane is a highly poisonous and explosive gas. Okay, remember that. So this B2H6 is highly poisonous and explosive, and therefore generally what we do is we go for the dilution of this particular diborane by using the organ. Okay, and then a certain reaction can be made, and then we can again form the B2O3, and this B2O3 will be sent to the silicon, and then this particular essential equation will take place, reaction will take place, and then we can form the our required diffusion. We can do our required diffusion. Generally we do not follow this gaseous sources because of its highly poisonous and explosive nature. Okay, so we do not follow. Now we have the spin-on source. Okay, the spin-on source, as I said, in the spin-on source, we have to take a certain mixture of certain chemicals. Okay, so in this case, we have to take the carborane and alkyl siloxane. Okay, we have to take the mixture of this two, and then this two mixture. After making a mixture, we have to put the drop onto the wafer. We have to spin it at a certain RPM, then we have to spread it, we have to develop a certain thin layer of this particular chemical, then we have to start a baking. Okay, we have to do the baking process at a certain temperature like 250 degrees centigrade to 300 and so, and then after baking it, a certain product will be formed, or you can say this mixture will get decomposes into B2O3 and SiO2. Okay, so again we form the B2O3, which is our ultimate product, and this is going to be giving you this reaction, and then it will be start diffusing. So basically for the boron diffusion, the most popular source is your trimethyl borate, TMB, and another source is your boron nitride. These two are mostly used in case of boron diffusion. Now we have our second diffusion of our phosphorus in the silicon. So again, you can see the intrinsic diffusivity of this phosphorus is same as your boron. Its surface concentration is a little bit changed, but 10 to the power 21 atoms. Okay, its tetrahedral radius is 0.96 angstrom, and its Miss factor, if you see the misfit factor, is its misfit factor is much lesser as compared to your boron. Okay, so that's why we can have the high impurity active impurity concentration. Okay, very high active impurity concentration. So it's order is 10 to the power 20. As we can see in the case of boron, the maximum concentration of the active impurity was 5 into 10 to the power 19. But in the case of phosphorus, we can get the active impurity concentration up to 10 to the power 23 into 10 to the power 3. 20, okay, mm per centimeter cube, because of this small, very small misfit factor. So we can see in the solid source, if we see, we can use the P2O5, okay, phosphorus pentoxide we can use. And after having this reaction with the silicon, again, this SiO2 will be formed, and it will be releasing the phosphorus, and later on this phosphorus will be deposited onto the surface of the SiO2 or silicon, and then it will be start diffusing at the diffusion temperature. One thing that we have to remember about the P2O5 is that the P2O5 is hygroscopic in nature. Okay, so because of this nature, it is easily contaminated. Okay, it can be easily contaminated because it absorbs the moistures from the ambient. Okay, so generally because of the lots of contamination available with the P2O5, okay, we do not use this particular source. Okay, again the reaction will be same, but we do not use this source directly. Okay, because contamination will be there. Okay, instead of using P2O5, we are having another solid sources like ammonium dihydrogen phosphate and ammonium monohydrogen phosphate. So this can be used in place of the P2O5 as a solid source. Okay, and then this reaction can be done. So next one is our liquid source. So in the case of liquid source, we have to use the phosphorus oxychloride, and this source is most popular in the case of phosphorus diffusion. Okay, phosphorus oxychloride is most popular. Okay, so basically what happens is it is maintained in a bubbler. Okay, in bubbler at 0 to 40 degrees centigrade. Okay, and then after having this reaction, okay, after having this reaction in the means oxygen ambient. Okay, so this reaction will take place, and then the product will be formed like P2O5 plus 6Cl2. Okay, so this 6Cl2 will be formed and P2O5 will be formed. Again, this P2O5 will be transported towards the silicon, and then uh, ultimate diffusion of the phosphorus will take place. Okay, as we can see again, the byproduct of this is our chlorine gas. Okay, so adequate venting is required. Okay, so that this halogen pitting can be uh, prevented. Okay, so that to prevent this halogen pitting effect. Okay, uh, basically what happens is this availability of the oxygen. Okay, because of the availability of the oxygen, the halogen pitting effect can be avoided in this particular chemical reaction. Okay, another liquid source that we can use is our phosphorus tribromide. Okay, PBr. Now we have the gaseous source. So in the gaseous source, again, we can use the phosphine gas pH3. So basically, pH3 is again a very highly toxic and explosive gas. Okay. So generally, we do not use this, but theoretically, we can see this particular chemical equation. Again, we have to use a very dilute form of phosphine gas, which is diluted with the nitrogen or argon. By volume, it is 99.99% diluted. Okay, and then this reaction can take place, and ultimately we can form the P2O5 again, and then we can go for the diffusion of the phosphorus. The last one is again the spin-on source. So in the spin-on source, we have to use the certain organic compound of the phosphorus, and that compound is our triphenyl phosphate. Okay, this triphenyl phosphate we have to use with a suitable organosilane mixture. Okay, and then again we have to perform that spin coating, and then baking again, and then we have to form, or we have to decompose them into a certain byproducts, and ultimately we have to form this P2O5. Okay, so that way we can go for the phosphorus diffusion. As I said, for the phosphorus diffusion, liquid source phosphorus oxychloride is mostly used in the most of the cases, or you can say it is universally used source is our liquid source phosphorus oxychloride. Now for the arsenic diffusion, you can see in the arsenic diffusion, the diffusivity of the arsenic is less than the phosphorus and the boron, okay, at 1200 degrees centigrade. Uh, One more thing is that the surface concentration of this is around 10 to the power 21, okay, and its tetrahedral radius of the arsenic is same as your silicon. Okay, both are having the same tetrahedral radius. Okay, and therefore its misfit factor is 0, and because of its misfit factor is 0, the active impurity concentration that can have is 5 to 10 to the power 20 atoms per centimeter. Okay, we can have a very large amount of active impurity concentration. that may be achievable in the case of arsenic. Okay, now to have the diffusion, okay, of the arsenic, we can have the solid source. That solid source is our arsenic trioxide. We can take As2O3 with the silicon slice at this particular temperature. So once you will be forming this chemical reaction, okay, once we have this chemical reaction, then arsenic will be deposited onto your material, okay, SiO2 will be formed, and then it will start diffusing at the diffusion temperature. Okay, so one thing that we have to remember is while having this chemical equation, okay, one thing that we have to remember is we cannot use the oxygen ambient, okay, in the case of arsenic, okay, as we have used the oxygen ambient in the case of phosphorus and boron diffusion, but in case of arsenic diffusion we cannot use the oxygen ambient. The basic reason behind it that when the SiO2 is formed, okay, because of the oxygen ambient, then this SiO2 is actually masking the diffusion of the arsenic. Okay, in case of the phosphorus or boron, the SiO2 layer is not masking it. Okay, the diffusion constant may be a little bit different in the case of SiO2 and silicon. Okay, but the phosphorus atoms and boron atoms can diffuse through the SiO2 layer. Okay, but the arsenic is completely masked by the SiO2 layer. Okay, arsenic cannot diffuse through the SiO2 layer, and therefore we cannot use the oxygen ambient in the case of arsenic diffusion. Okay, we should not use. So basically what we have to use is we have to use the carrier gas as the nitrogen or any inert gas we can use. Okay, we should not use the uh, oxygen gas. Now, one more important property of the arsenic that possesses it is very highly volatile. Okay, so whenever it is highly volatile, then it happens that its surface concentration, if you see, uh, the materials means the dopants that are sitting onto the surface, there may be a possibility that because it is highly volatile, it will be out diffused. Okay, and because of the out diffusion of the arsenic atoms, the maximum surface concentration that can be available with the solid sources cannot be greater than 2 into 10 to the power 19 atoms per centimeter cube. Okay, these are all experimentally observed results. Okay, it cannot have this much of it cannot achieve surface concentration more than this 2 into 10 to the power 19 atoms per centimeter cube, because of it is very highly volatile. Okay, and out diffusion will take place from the surface. Okay, and that's why at diffusion temperature that will take place. So that's why its surface concentration cannot be greater than this much. Okay, so in this case we can use the gaseous sources. In the gaseous source we can use the arsine gas. Okay, and generally with the arsine gas, again, this surface concentration cannot be more than 3 into 10 to the power 19. The most popular source for arsenic diffusion, I said initially about the spin-on source. Okay, so for arsenic diffusion, we are using this spin-on source. Okay, we do not use the solid sources or gaseous sources or any liquid sources. But the mostly used source is spin-on source because it is highly volatile. Okay, so what we do is we are taking the organic compound of arsenic, which is our arsenosiloxanes. Okay, so this will be used with the appropriate binder. We have to take an appropriate binder. We have to take the arsenosiloxane, and then we have to use this mixture. Okay, we have to take this drop, and then this drop will be put onto our silicon wafers, and then after heating at 250 degrees centigrade, this will be forming an organosilicate glass. Okay, remember that it will be forming organosilicate glass. Okay, this arsenosilicate glass will be acts as the secondary source of the dopant. Okay, this will be acts as a, because your primary source is your this organic compound, this mixture. Okay, arsenosiloxane with an appropriate binder. Okay, and this mixture upon heating, okay, upon baking, okay, it will be forming a arseniosilicate glass, and that arseniosilicate glass will be act as a secondary source of the dopant. So basically, this secondary source will be giving you the arsenic, okay, arsenic atoms, okay. That arsenic atom will start diffusing into your silicon, okay. And not only it is providing you the source of arsenic, but it is also this arseniosilicate glass will also prevents the out diffusion of the dopant material, okay, because you know that the arsenic is very much highly volatile. So this volatile nature can be prevented by having the arseniosilicate glass, okay. So this arseniosilicate glass will not let the arsenic to out diffuse, okay. So only diffusion within the silicon will take place. So I hope these are the three important dopant material that we generally use. So I hope this must be clear how we can go for the doping process, what are different doping system or diffusion system that we have, and what are the different sources that we have for different impurities, and which particular source is used for a particular dopant that is I have discussed in this particular lecture. So I hope this discussion must be clear. So in the next lecture, we will be discussing some another topic. So thank you for watching, and try to understand this lecture. If you have any query, you can drop me any problems in the chat box. So thank you for watching.